Okay, welcome. So this weekend we've got the 6 hours of Watkins Glen. So this video is just going to show you how to get round it as fast as possible. So let me just introduce myself. I'm Chris Dobson. I'm part of the team of Team Happy Life Factory, and what I do in my spare time now, I don't race go-karts or anything anymore. I help coach other drivers and just those keen sim racers who are just looking to get that bit quicker. And working with Team Happy Life Factory, we're putting a training academy together. And this is the first track guide video we're doing. So this will show you how to use your brakes effectively, what points to turn in, how to maximize the car to get as much speed out of it as possible, but to drive it in the most relaxed way you can consistently. So the setup I've got on the car at the moment is the VRS endurance setup for this 6 hour race. If you go out practicing and you're not using this setup, it will not work. And also the VRS 6 hour setup that we have available in Team Happy Life Factory has been optimized for the tires, because this track is absolutely catastrophic for the front tires. Even the rears have higher wear than normal. So please make sure, if you go out testing before the race and for the race, use this setup. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. All that knowledge will go out the window, because the feeling of the car you have through the wheel and what you feel on track is going to be different. Okay, so I can't stress that enough. Always make sure that you're testing with the correct setup you're going to be using for the race. And we will always try and make those available as soon as possible for the week coming up. So, before we get started, I just want to show you, I'll just bring this up. 1 tank of fuel gives you 32 laps. This is my 32 lap stint. See, it's quite consistent. But after we get past lap 15, the tyres, even though the car's getting a lot lighter, the tyres start to drop off quite dramatically. That is also because the track is also at 0% usage. So there's going to be a bit more tyre slippage than would there be in the race when the track grips up. So if I just show you here, yeah, testing is clean, 0% usage. Okay, again, 21 degrees, so it's not overly hot, it's not cold. It's just nice temperature for the tyres, but with it being clean, this is the best testing condition for me to use to see what the car can do in the worst case grip scenario. So, yeah, when we get down to lap 15, 16, the tyres are dropping off. They're getting slowly worse at times, which you'd expect to see, but as we get down to the last 10 laps, they get a bit more spread out because the tyre degradation is so high. It might not be as high during the race. In the race, I expect you to drive it a bit more relaxed. Don't push it so far. Remember, it is a long race. And over your 32 laps, the last 10 laps, you're really going to feel the tyres, especially the fronts, having less and less grip. And this track depends so much on front tyre grip. So you need to look after them. Otherwise, it's going to be horrible out there. So just be nice and gentle with those front tyres, and that is what I'm going to explain how to do in this video. So this lap I'm about to show you is my second lap. After I've first lap warming up the tyres, second lap, tyres are nice and warmed up, race pressure, so we can start attacking the curves properly once we're at this temperature. Again, on the BMW dashboard, if I just bring it up actually, you have the tyre pressures and the yellow boxes of when they're below temperature. First 2 or 3 laps, they're always going to be on the right hand side slightly lower, and they will always show up in the yellow. Don't worry too much, because this track is very aggressive on the lefts and not so much on the rights. So your lefts will always warm up a lot quicker on this track. Also, your tyre degradation will be much higher on the left-hand side, so just bear that in mind. But as you can see, at near maximum fuel. Haven't changed the traction control or ABS at all, but if you're braking correctly and you're turning the car correctly, you should never engage the automatic traction control and you should never engage the ABS. It's there as a fail-safe. If you really want to optimize the braking and you're braking the correct points, the ABS won't kick in. And that's what we'll go through now. So if I just come out of the car, actually what I'll do, I'll show you a full speed lap as it is now. Just so you can see from my point of view how I'm going about the track and the gears I'm using. So let's just push play and I'll shut up. Okay, let's just pause that. Alright, now what we're going to do now, so you can see what gears I was using there, how the car was behaving from my perspective. You can see some of my steering inputs, and what I'll try and do is if you concentrate on this area down here, when I start doing the track talk, exactly what points I'm doing on the track and how I'm doing it. I'm always using this as reference for you guys. So obviously that's 50% brake, 80% brake, full brake, accelerator, clutch, and you can see my steering input. You try and keep your steering input as little as possible with this track, or most tracks with this car, because where those front tyres have got a lot of grip, and with the setup for this car, naturally, they use a lot of caster. And what caster is, it works with the camber, which is the angle of the front tyres. So when you turn the car, the camber is the contact patch that goes back in contact with the ground to give you the grip. The caster is the angle of which it pushes the tyre into the ground. And I don't know if anybody's ever been go-karting, but sometimes you get in a go-kart and the steering is really heavy. And that's because they're running high caster levels to give you that front grip. And with this car, it needs a lot of caster. So where it's got a lot of caster, you should be able to feel the front wheels very nicely. So, and that means we can steer the car on the brake also, and that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to go to this second lap here, and we are going to put it in chase. So now you can see the behavior of the car as I'm explaining it from the outside. And again, just look down here for reference when I'm talking about the inputs I'm doing. So let's take that away. Okay, and let's go. So we're in fifth. And right here between the 300 and the 200, that's where we're braking. So I bring it back just a bit. So just between these two. And then from from the cockpit, let's just get that perspective. It almost looks like you're braking at the 200, but you're actually braking between them. So that's your point of reference. When you see in a 200 like this, if I go just forward a couple of frames, you can see I am not stamping on the brake. I'm just going frame by frame here. I am progressively putting the brake on till about 70%. So you can actually see from there to there, as the brake pressure goes on, the car dips forward. That is loading up the front tyres, freeing up the rear tyres, and then that means the front of the car is heavy enough, loading the front tyres with grip, ready to come off the brake and turn into the corner. So again, we're putting the brake on and we're gently coming off of it. And as I'm coming off of it, I'm putting steering angle on. And then let's just come out and let's go back to chase and bring that back just so you can see. So still braking, quite heavy. That's a blip of the throttle. That's not me putting more power on. Okay, and only gently increasing the steering as we're getting closer. So we're making quite an early entry and we're progressively building the steering as we're taking the brake off. And that, if you can see it here, as that brake is still on and I'm taking it off, the car is got a slip angle. We call this is car rotation. It's called slip angle. It allows you to get the angle of the car in a nice controlled. It doesn't feel like a slide, but technically it is a slide. And that's how cars go fast, but they look so flowing in when they do it. And we're aiming, if my mouse comes up, for this part of the curve. We're not looking to get up here. We're just looking to get our right wheels on this bit. About here. Not too early. You can get on it early, but we're looking to go about here. So as soon as I can see the cars dipping in, because you can see the steepness of the angle here, that's why you want to steer in quite early, because the track also carries the car around, because the camber of the track is so high. Okay, so if we just look at how I'm putting it, this is the point I'm putting maximum steering on, because this is the point the car has got enough weight with the way the track is going to get the maximum amount of grip. So I'm getting that last bit of rotation in before I put the power back down. And then you want to go over this curb, not too aggressively. If you look, as I'm going over this, I'm actually going over it with very little steering angle. Because if I got too much steering angle on, the car will bump, slide, and it will just slow down or spin. So you're almost, as you're going over this, you're beginning to straighten up the wheel. Okay, straight, just a little bit, just to settle it back on. And here, I can find my mouse again. So I'm using an ultra-wide TV, it disappears now and again. So you want to avoid this. This is an incident, and if you're qualifying, that's the end of your lap. You can get an absolute monster exit out of here, but if you touch this, it's game over. But you need to get confident with brushing it like this. That is optimum line. Okay, it's easy to do. I'm not on the limit there. I can steer across to the right way more aggressively if I want to, but I don't want to put any more input into the car than I need to. So it's always good to use all the track that is available to you. So as we're coming up here, we're just building the speed up, middle of the track, gently bring it into the right. And what a lot of people do here wrong is that they get to this point and they keep going right. You don't want to do that because the next apex is there. So we want a straight line. We want to put as minimal effort into the car as possible. So we straight line it. And as soon as we see the apex again, we gently bring it back to the left. And as we're going up the hill, we're going into fifth gear. And you want to hold fifth gear down this entire section. Or one point I want to just talk about real quick is when you do come up this section and your tyres are wearing, it's very easy to, as the track falls away from you here, it's very easy for the steering to go light and to not be aware if you're not paying attention. If you lose concentration, it's very easy to hit this barrier way more than it looks, where the track just dips away. So be aware of that, just be careful. Okay, so we're flat out down here in fifth gear. Let's just push play for the second. Alright, and what we're going to be doing, keeping it to the left, just being wary of the grass, and we are going to be braking right about here, I believe. Let me just double check. Yeah, 300 board. Let's just bring that back a couple of frames. Okay, so if you look at my steering angle and how much I apply the brake here, I'm doing it, a lot of people brake a bit later. I do the braking nice and early in a straight line and progressively come off the brake to get the weight of the car settled onto this side as we enter. That way we lift up the front wheels on the right hand side and the rear wheel, which allows us to ride this curb completely. So we're straightening this corner. It's not a cut. We're allowed to do it. If iRacing doesn't give you an incident, other people are going to do it. You have to do it to be competitive. And when you do go across it at speed, and this side of the car is loaded up with the weight, it's easy. And I'm going to explain that now. So as we're going in, braking quite heavy, about 50-60%, and we're coming off the brake very quickly. And as I'm coming off the brake, you can see, as I'm turning in, the weight of the car is now shifted to this side of the car. And because we're carrying so much speed, this side goes light. And when that side is light, it means if we go over this, these wheels do not make much contact here. It's all on this. All the weight of the car is here. So as we go over, we can completely go over it because all the grip is here. And then what we want to do is, because all the grip is now here, and then we've suddenly got a left. So we've straightened the line up as much as possible. So you haven't got to keep turning right and then left. It's almost a straight line, which makes it much easier to change direction. And it looks after the tyres. So as we're coming along, I'm gently going to the left, and I'm just applying a little bit of trail brake to put the weight of the car back to the front to allow me to turn left without the car understeering. And what that allows me to do is get on that curb, and I can get right back onto the power early because I've got so tight. There's grip on this part of the track, and I think on this lap I actually understeer a little bit, but that's because I'm maximising the amount of grip I've got. But really, you want to be touching this. So if we bring this forward, you can see where ideally I want it to be here, but not on this bit. It's too unsettling. Be here. I just miss it ever so slightly because I was really going for a good lap here, and I could feel the grip was there, and I know that the car is not going to understeer and go over this section. But what you can see here, so I'm in fourth gear through this whole section, and I stay in fourth as I'm accelerating. And when we get to this bit, you can actually run the right hand side wheels slightly over the grass. Don't panic if you do that. Practice it. It does work. But what you can do is just take it a bit easier through this section and don't go flat out so quickly, and you can just avoid the grass completely. If you don't feel confident touching the grass, you don't have to do it. It's no quicker. It just means I can run a straighter line. Okay, so you can see as I'm turning right and the power's on fully, the right hand side of the car is not loaded up with the car's weight. It's the left hand side again, so I can touch that grass, but I'm accelerating over it as I'm turning right. If you turn left all of a sudden, or slow down, or brake, the front of the car will grip up, the right hand side tyres will grip up, and that's when you have a spin. And that's what you have to avoid. You have to have the confidence that if you touch the grass, stay on the direction you're travelling, either come off the accelerator gently if you're out of control, or slightly come off it and then get back on the power, and don't change the direction of your wheel. If you change the direction of the wheel, you shift the weight to the side of the grass, and that's how you have your spin. So I keep turning right, and that curb hooks me up and pulls me in nice and tight. So I'm not going super wide here. I'm just keeping my right wheels, where's my mouse, on this line. And I'm bringing it back in gently, and I'm off the power, and that gives my front wheels enough grip to bring it in. Before I accelerate again, I just want to explain that bit a bit further. So I'm turning right. I'm off the. What point do I get off the power? There. That's there. So yeah. So where the car is going so fast through this section, and the track is also cambered to the inside, you want to get in nice and early. Too early is too slow, it's too tight of an angle, and we want a wider line. So we get in about here. And to do that, I come off the power. That shifts the weight of the car back to the front. It gives me enough grip without having to touch the brakes to steer the car in. And then gently getting back on the power as it grips up, hitting the apex, right over it. That gives you grip. You come out on the exit. It's very easy to go wide here and damage yourself. Just be careful. You just touch it and you're back over. This bit here, if I fast forward, is actually quite a big dip. It doesn't show it. That's a big dip. And if you go over that, you get an incident report point. And it also can severely damage the car. You just have to be careful. It can really mess with the steering. And then we bring it back over to the right. And we want to get it in a straight line before we start braking. This corner is off camber a little bit. And it can be a bit slidey. So you want the car to be neutral balanced, nice and relaxed before we start braking, before we enter. So straight line. And then we brake just before this colour change in the tarmac here. So I'm braking before this drain. And I'm braking quite heavily, and I'm steering to the middle of the track, and I'm bleeding off the brake, and I'm putting more and more steering angle on because I want to hit the apex here. You can get on it, or you can just go next to it, but the angle of the track changes, and it goes back into your favour because you want to get here because the camber comes back, and it holds you on the inside so you can get back on the power and then flat out on the exit. And you straighten up. Okay, and then that's a third gear corner, and then we're going up into fourth gear. And this corner we're going back down into third gear. You can see I'm braking there. You can see the weight transfer of the car. From there to there. Let's get the frame. Those few frames, you can see how aggressive the braking is. The weight transfer into the front of the car. And that's what you want on this corner. So we want all the weight to the front. Heavy braking. Let's go back to the reference point for this. So just right next to, as soon as you get next to that 200 and you've cleared it, really build up the brakes heavy. Don't stamp them because you don't want to shock the car. Progressively put them to about 80%. And we're gently applying the steering angle while we're slowly bleeding off the brake. So as we actually get to this bit of concrete, we're just touching the brake ever so slightly. And we're doing that because we don't want the front of the car to lift back up. Where we were so aggressive on the brakes, if we come off the brakes too quickly, the front of the car lifts, the weight goes back to the rear, and we get understeer. And that's what messes your tyres up, and it causes you to lose all the time in the corner. So we're staying on the brake ever so slightly. Be impatient. Don't get on the power yet. Let the corner do its work. The grip is there. Roll the power through. And as soon as we get about here, we can get on the power quite aggressively because there's lots and lots of grip on this part of the tarmac. We're flat out. That there where I'm lifting off ever so slightly is where I can feel that where the grip level is so low, the front wheels are understeering ever so slightly. So I just tiny bit of throttle off just to give a little bit of weight to the front was enough for me to bring it back in. And then we use this little dip in the grass on the exit. Be careful to avoid the grass as it comes back in. So just be aware of that. If you're lacking concentration, it's a long stint. You've been racing for over an hour. Just be careful of that because that will be a car wrecker. If you touch that, you'll end up in the barriers on the right hand side. So again, from third gear going up to fourth gear down the back straight. It's very easy to go into fifth. I recommend you don't hit the rev limiter if you do. And we're braking just after the 200 board. If we go into fifth, it's quite hard to get from fifth to second in the time to make the car settled before we enter the corner. It's better to stay in fourth, brake a bit more controlled and only shift down 2 gears. The car is then more settled as we enter. And as we enter, we're bleeding off the brake. We're getting those left wheels on the new bit of concrete and the right wheels nice and early turned in. Because again, we're using the track's angle here in our favour. So we're turning in early to take advantage of it. So we roll the car through this section and then we put the power on. When we get about just before halfway, we can get the power back on gently, progressively, modulate it with the grip feeling you're getting from the front tyres. And then once you've got the grip flat out, use that part of the concrete, use the rumble strip, bring it to the right hand side, go up to third gear, don't go into fourth, and then we're braking quite heavily. There's not many reference points here, so you're going to have to make your own up. I do it by my perception of the NASCAR sign, how close I am to the corner on my left. I do it by feeling here. This is one of the few corners where I don't really have a reference point. You can make your own. Again, there'll be little markings on the track you might notice, a tree to your left or right of you. But for this corner, it's one of those few corners I do it by feeling. So we're progressively going on the brake very hard from third gear, and we're shifting down into second gear. And we're going to slowly turn it into the middle of the track. You're aiming for this part here, with the first part of the corner. And then as the corner goes round, we don't want a tight line. We want a nice late apex and get a good exit. Okay, so then we get in, and as it grips up, we get back on the power. Good exit, bring it out wide. Because what we want as much speed as possible on the exit, because we're not going to use the brakes for the next corner. We're going to come off the brakes, and it's not so much the speed around this corner. You can carry a lot of speed. It's about the weight transference of the car. So we want as much speed to maximize the next corner if we can. So we get all the speed we can. We stay in fourth gear, get to the right, be careful of the grass, and we're turning in relatively early because there's very little grip to begin with, and also we're coasting the car in. We're not using the brake, so the car won't steer as much, but we're very gentle on the steering. Okay, and when we come off the throttle, that gives the front tyres the right amount of grip we need to get it turned in nice and calmly without using the brakes to slow us down. So again, we'll keep coming round. Again, still fourth gear. As soon as we get on this bit here, it's concrete stuff again. There's loads of grip. We can get back on the power very quickly. But if I just go back a couple of frames, it's not a stamp. If you frame by frame, it's progressive. It's not a stamp down on the accelerator, it's progressive. So, and we do that progressively because if we put our foot down too quickly, the front of the car lifts up and then we understeer out of the corner. And instead of riding this rumble strip, we go over it and then we cause car damage, or worse, a crash. And we do not want that at all, because this is one of the worst corners on the track for that. Here, we stay in fourth gear, we bring it over to the left and we brake quite early. We're braking, you could brake later and harder, but to maximize the exit, because it's a long straight, we go gently in and we try and carry as much speed out of it as possible. And again, this corner, it's very easy to touch the grass on the outside and spin. So just be aware. So if you see here, I don't have it in a straight line with this white line. I actually have it angled to this kink here. And in real life, that has been created by race drivers using that line to go into this corner. So I'm braking. And because this is a GT3 and there's low grip, I'm having to turn in slightly earlier than what this is. This is probably for a formula car. Because of the angle of the track, we have to maximize the angle of the track here. So we're coming off the brake nice and gently. It's very important you brake very gently going into this corner, because you don't want to upset the car. If you upset the car, you'll get a lot of understeer, then you'll get a lot of oversteer, and then you go back into understeer again, and you probably go into the tyres on the exit. It's very, very... It needs to be a smooth corner. This is the most crucial corner for being smooth. And you want to turn in early. You may think you're going to hit the grass, but if you did it coast in with minimal steering, you'll get the grip on this concrete again. And you kind of almost want to imagine hitting this. And then we get back on the power just before we get there. you can see there's a slight angle change. We're trying to level the car up with this. And then we get flat on the power when we get on that grippy bit. And we use the exit, not too much. And we're flat out. We only use fourth gear. You can go down into third gear. But I find it unsettles the car with my driving style. Fourth gear keeps it nice and stable. If third gear works for you through there, then do it by all means. Everybody's driving style is slightly different. Everybody's using slightly different equipment. You might have to use it. You might not like it at all. But I recommend fourth gear for consistency. All right. So that's a full lap. What I'll do now, I'll put on far chase so you can see exactly how much curb I'm using and what section and the line I take. And I'll just leave this with you here. What I will say is, if you do want more training sessions, I'm going to be doing 2 1-hour training sessions during the week. Subject to change. We might change it depending on time zones and what people can do. If you are interested in training sessions at all in any way, let me just pull up the correct times and dates and I'll let you know. If you go onto the Team Happy Life Factory Discord and then go down to coaching session requests, put your name in there and we'll figure something out. If you want to be, let me see if it's been changed. Academy sign-in. So if you want to be part of the academy which we're setting up, which gives you access to all these videos, the setups, the tips, how to race. Sometimes if you're a beginner or if you haven't got confident with car control, we even do basic car control sessions where we actually look at what trail braking is, what's lift off oversteer, what is slip angle. If you don't know what those things are, it's even though if you might be doing them, to know what they actually are and what they're for, it's worth doing a session on them and see how they're initiated and how they work and why we use them. So if you're interested in that, go to the Academy, sign in on Discord, put your name down. The more people involved, the better. We can work out more sessions, better times to do it, and it will be fun. So I'll leave you with this now. I'll just give you, put it in far chase for you, and just one full lap. Let's put it back to that lap. There we go, and enjoy. Good luck in a 6 hour.